My name's Jane Griffiths. I work for Janssen, which is part of the Johnson & Johnson group of companies. We're the pharmaceutical division of J&J. So my journey started many years ago as a salesperson in the company after I finished my PhD. I needed some money. I got a job as a sales representative and I've never looked back. An amazing company to work for, but more importantly an amazing business to be in. So I had various roles in the company: commercial, strategic, R&D, and now I find myself responsible for our commercial group in Europe, Middle East and Africa. Several thousand people under my responsibility, and as well as my responsibility for that, I also chair our Corporate Citizens Trust, which is our CSR arm for EMEA, if you like, across 3 sectors. I'm a champion for sustainability within our organisation and also for women's leadership. Well, I mean, sustainability covers a huge range of things, but if I focus on a couple of things, one is our drive to impact more lives globally, not just in Western markets, but also in developing countries. And the other is obviously the environmental sustainability. So if I talk about access to medicines first, we have a global public health group who takes responsibility for access in some of the countries in the world that have less ability to pay. And notable projects there would be our programs in multi-drug resistant TB, where we launched a new compound a couple of years ago. Our programs in HIV, which, as you can imagine, in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, still a very big problem. We have access programs for our HIV medicines there. We're also heavily involved in developing a new Ebola vaccine in response to the issues that we had last year in 2015. And a number of other research projects looking at neglected tropical diseases. So these are areas where really, there is no profit motive there. It's about dealing with some of the most difficult diseases in some of the world's countries that have no or little ability to pay. And then from an environmental sustainability point of view, I got involved several years ago. I was asked to sponsor a sustainability council within the pharmaceutical group. And these were people taken from various different functions who convene on a regular basis and looked at what we needed to do to become a more sustainable organisation as a farm group. So we looked at manufacturing processes, which would be an obvious area to look, but we also looked at employee engagement programs and what we could do for people not involved in the supply chain who could also get involved in reducing our footprint in the environment. So things were done like reducing the engine sizes of cars, for example. So we have quite a big fleet, clearly, because we have a lot of salespeople. But in the manufacturing processes, looking how we could reduce water consumption during the manufacturing process, look at packaging, reduce the solvent use and impact on the environment. And we introduced a sort of specific process that looked at that, which awarded certain products an Earthwords, which is sort of our trademark for products that have fulfilled a certain criteria in terms of reduced footprint in how it's manufactured and commercialized. And so people not only in supply chain but even in the product development groups were looking at it and saying, well, how can we positively impact the environment by looking more closely at this? And a good example of that would be one product that we bought, a very small company, and we made major advances in like 60-70% water reduction during the manufacturing process, and also a big reduction in solvent use. There's so much I could talk about, but so little time. Well, I mean, we have goals, so we set our sustainability and citizenship goals now for 2020, and we're looking to see which goals we will absolutely monitor. So, you know, the important thing is it's no use setting off on these journeys and then not monitoring what you're doing. You have to set yourself a goal, whatever it might be. You know, water use reduction in manufacturing, clean energy use. You know, be zero waste to landfill. You know, whatever the goal is, set the goal. Be public about it, and then monitor ourselves against it, and be honest about the difficulties that we may have and celebrate the successes that we may have. I think this is very important, and you know, because people outside of our company will hold us accountable for whether we're successful in that. Of course, it's important for us ourselves to do that, because we talked during this conference today about the millennial generation and their expectation about big corporations and what focus they're having on the environment and on socially responsible programs. A few years ago, I went and gave a presentation in the US to a very big MBA invitational. So we do that every year with J&J. We do it on the web now, but we used to do it face to face. And I thought everybody would be asking me questions on career opportunities and salary structures. Not a bit of it. I talked about some of our CSR projects, and I talked about our access to medicines initiatives, and all of the questions were about that. You know, what is J&J doing? How can I get involved? One of the interesting things that we talked about in the conference today was how easy or difficult it was to get people involved in that. I mean, in our company, people absolutely love to be involved in CSR projects. So now we have, with the Corporate Citizens Trust that I chair, through that we have specific secondments now. So people are chosen, and our best talents are chosen as part of their individualised development programme to spend 6 months going out to some of the projects in Africa or Eastern Europe, or wherever it might be. And you know, I wish I could go off and do one of those. And I can tell you, they come back changed people. I can't believe, you know, 25 years ago I would have thought, would I ever be doing what I'm doing now? You know, it's not, well, it is the responsibility for the people, and it's the responsibility for the business. But the biggest thing is, if you look at how many lives we impact through what we do, you know, it's millions and millions of people that we touch every day through our medicines or through our CSR activities. And so I chose to talk today not about our CSR activities, but about what we're doing in the business to become more sustainable. So there were 3 things that I spoke about. One was about people and place and partnerships. So those were the 3 things I talked about. So we're in the business of increasing longevity and making people have a better quality of life, particularly with our medicines. But you know, the delivery of healthcare is very complicated and sometimes very compartmentalized. And so I talked about a project that we're conducting at the moment with a partner, a small startup called Patients Know Best, and they've developed some software technology, and they've partnered with the NHS to enable individual patients to be able to see their own medical records, and for whomever they give permission to be able to see those records. So clearly your healthcare worker could be your social worker, could be a consultant that you're being treated by at the moment, but also it could be members of your family. And we've chosen to pilot it in HIV. A few thousand patients been through it now, and I think the great thing about it is that as an individual patient, if I had HIV, I would be able to see what my latest test results showed. So what was my viral load? Are my CD4 cells doing well? There's sort of cells that protect me from getting too many infections. And then when I have my test every 6 months, I can see, am I better or am I worse than I was before? If I want, I can see over time how things are. And I can have my blood test at hospital, I can go back home, I can go on the web the next day, I can see the result, I can ring my HIV physician, and I can say, you know, do I need to change my medicine at all? Is everything okay? And that puts us at the centre, the patient at the centre. You know, I feel more in control about what's happening to me, and I think taking responsibility for our own healthcare and understanding more about our health status is something that's going to be good going forward. So I talked about that. Then I talked about our social impact for procurement initiative that we have. It started off in the UK, but it's moving out to other countries in Europe now, where we're allocating a certain proportion of our spend to be spent with, you know, small companies that are making and set up for social impact. So we have a company called Inside Job that helps to get employment for ex-offenders and gives them work experience doing and editing the videos that we have, much like the one we're making today. So we use them for all of our videos, and so they employ more people who are going out on day release, for example, from an institution, or have already left prison. And so what we're trying to do is to help, through our procurement, enable employment through these sorts of social impact companies. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing I talked about was our environmental stewardship with our supply chain, how we apply these Earthwords designation to products that have had cleaner supply manufacturing processes, that have really been thoughtful about the packaging to reduce the footprint of the packaging, and to really have a very holistic view about how the design of that product is better for a patient to take, but that the packaging is, and the manufacturing processes are more sustainable. So those are three things that are very much in the business, and not as a CSR, you know, trust next door to it, but actually a way that you can drive business, you know, our business. But more importantly, we're a big company. We've got a huge presence across the globe, and imagine if we can start a more initiative with many companies where everybody starts to look at procuring for social impact, and what impact that could make. So last year in 2015 we had a big meeting where we had a lot of our suppliers like that and other companies come together and talk about how we could increase the level of spend for impact, and sort of talk to other companies, some of whom were doing better than us in that respect, and for some of them who hadn't even really started. So this can be a huge movement in terms of you know, impacting employment, in this case, for people who might otherwise find it difficult to get back into the workforce. Well, we have had people who've responsible for setting goals and environmental goals for a number of years now. I would say, I don't know, honestly, I don't know, because we've had goals, environmental goals, for many years. I mean, we have one of the biggest solar panel arrays in the US feeding into the grid for our manufacturing processes in California. That was set up many years ago now, and I think of course the external world requires more of us now than it used to. I mean, the whole focus on the environment now is much more insistent today than it was 20 years ago. But in J&J's credo, the sort of third element of its credo talks about the fact that we will pay attention to the communities and the environment in which we live and work. So even as early as the 1940s, we were reflecting on how do you impact employment in your local community, and what impact do you make on the physical environment where you're operating. So that showed a pretty huge amount of foresight, that in the 1940s we were thinking about that sort of thing, and of course that's grown with us as a company. But you know, you can never be good enough. You always have to be looking at what else you can do. Well, I think through some of the things that I've just described, I mean, I do think that with all of these initiatives, you have to set yourself goals and you have to measure yourself against it, and then you know whether you're delivering impact or not. And if there was a message that I would leave to this meeting is, set yourself some, you know, ambitious goals, measure yourself against them, and understand how you're performing. And the other thing I think is that it's important to engage the whole organisation in it, and I think that that is one thing that in very big organisations, how do you bring in everybody into the social impact way of thinking? And I think it's about joining up. I mean, a lot of people said, well, you know, if supply chain are doing the sort of clean manufacturing, what can we do as marketing staff or whatever? Well, the things that we can do there are look at how we run our everyday lives with regard to, are we also always switching the lights off at work? Are we driving a car with a smaller engine? Are we thinking about how much waste we create in the office? I think linking everybody into sustainability initiatives is very important. And then, of course, for people who are developing new products, marketing new products, what does the packaging look like? I mean, we did a big footprint survey for one of our medicines. You know, where is the biggest environmental impact, well, footprint, you know, carbon footprint impact? And it is in fact on the packaging, because in every pack of medicine, the amount of medicine you have is tiny, but the pack, you know, the cardboard, etc., how do you reduce that and still stay within regulatory guidelines? So everybody in the organisation can play a part in that, and it's how you bring everybody in, I think, is an important task for everybody.
Great.
Well, you know, the world is so complex and interrelated now, I don't think you can do anything entirely on your own. But at Janssen and J&J, particularly around our R&D innovation, we will go wherever the science is. So that's partnering with small biotech, it might be partnering with university groups to develop the best science. But partnerships go through the whole of the product development chain. I mean, we partner with people when we're on clinical trials. We're partnering with one of the other speakers on the forum today is from Salesforce.com, and you know, we partner with them on some initiatives that we're doing within J&J. And if we talk about partnering with healthcare providers, we don't want to be Janssen as a company over here and a healthcare provider over here. I mean, when you visit a physician, very often you'll come out with a prescription for a medicine. You know, the consultation, the diagnosis, and then the treatment, they're all very interlinked. So how can we deliver better healthcare for patients by partnering better with healthcare providers is something that's very important. And then when it comes to how you learn and do social impact better, and you know, partnerships are all what it's about, you know, learning from other people about how they're doing things better than we are so that we can, you know, improve ourselves. So I think the conference today is all about people learning from each other and how can you know, we do things better, because you know, from an environmental point of view, I mean, you see what's happening to ice flows, how everything's melting. You see how the weird climate is sort of impacting us at the moment, and it's not for someone else to deal with, it's for you and me to deal with.